research, they may be interested in funding aspects of the sea ice and physical oceanography or marine mammals research. So we may have some additional support coming from Office of Naval Research. And we're still interested in finding other partners. We had solicited proposals this summer. We invited a selection of those applicants to submit full proposals that we received in January. They're going out for technical review now, and our board will make funding decisions on those proposals the first week of May. So if any of you on the phone are associated with programs that may be interested in hopping on board and helping us to fund some of this work, please let us know. If we could have the next slide, please. So one of the things that we're really trying to do with this program is to coordinate with other existing projects that are funded by other agencies. So we've reached out quite a bit to other agencies for funding work in the area and done that with ARPIC. One of the things that we do, that's a hallmark of these integrated programs, is we put on PI meetings every year where we take all the folks who are associated with the program, get together for about 4 days, and they talk about their own research and their recent findings. But really what the value of those meetings is over time, each PI starts learning the languages of the other disciplines. So the fisheries scientists learn to speak the language of the physical oceanographers, and they build rapport, and the outcome of that and what we're striving for is to make advances in terms of the multidisciplinary analyses. So getting folks together to figure out how do you really the physical oceanography and put it together with the fisheries data and put it together with the marine mammal observations and analyze things in a way that's statistically robust so that you can say something about how the ecosystem functions. So if you look at the illustration on the left, you'll see we've got puzzle pieces there, and those represent individual projects that are funded by agencies such as USGS funding polar bear or walrus work, NOAA or BOEM funding marine mammal surveys or fisheries surveys, or physical oceanography projects. And what we really would like to do is move beyond individual projects and start filling in those arrows between them, which represent the processes, the mechanistic processes that drive that ecosystem, so that we can get to the illustration on the right where we really understand how things fit together, how food webs are formed, how changes in sea ice and oceanography affect things like forage fish distribution, benthic-pelagic coupling, and ultimately when and where you might find things like aggregations of marine mammals that are important for subsistence users. So we're really working hard to go beyond individual projects and really coordinate with all of the agencies like NOAA and BOEM and others who are funding work already to bring those into the mix so we can get there, because $8 million is not going to be enough for us to fund this end-to-end ecosystem program in isolation. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that we had 22 such existing projects funded by various federal agencies, NOAA, Fish and Wildlife, USGS, others, that committed before we put out our RFP that their existing projects would collaborate with whatever program we funded. And what we did was we gave abstracts and points of contact in the RFP for these 22 existing projects, so that when folks gave us proposals, they could see the other projects that were coming to the table, and they could build proposals that leveraged those other projects. So these other projects committed that their PIs will attend our annual meetings and that they'll be able to share data so that they can really integrate with whatever program we end up funding ultimately. If we could have the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, our board will make funding decisions in May on which projects specifically our $8 million will go towards funding. We anticipate that our program will include the physical drivers, sea ice, oceanography, biological system, as well as social sciences and probably a modeling component. When we invited the PIs to submit full proposals, we did something a little bit different. We let each of them know the title of the proposal and the identity of the lead principal investigator for each of the other proposals that had been invited back to the second round of competition. And we encouraged them strongly to articulate in their proposals ways that they would link up with one another to form a cohesive, collaborative program. So we're looking forward to reviewing those proposals this spring. And then what we'll do is we'll have a coordination meeting in June of this year. It'll be June 21st to 23rd in Anchorage, Alaska. And we'll have everyone who our board has decided to fund through this program, as well as representatives of those 22 projects who committed to collaborating, and get together for 3 days and look at what each project is bringing to the table in terms of logistical resources, data they plan to collect, and come up with consensus on some overarching hypotheses that we'll be able to test over the next 5 years. And I wanted to mention this because we are encouraging existing projects beyond the 22 that have already committed to join this collaboration. So if you are either running yourself as a PI or you're program manager funding a project that you think might be interested in joining this collaboration, please contact me. At the end of the slideshow, I have my email address there, and I'd be very happy to talk with you about linking in your program. So the other reason I thought that this was a great opportunity to speak with you is that we wanted to let everyone know that this program represents an opportunity to leverage resources in terms of sharing vessel time, potentially collecting samples, and deploying or recovering equipment like moorings. So we anticipate that we'll have field seasons in 2017 and then either 2018 or 2019, depending on which projects the board decides to fund. The timing of the sampling differs among proposals. Some propose to collect data in the spring during ice retreat. Others will be out there more during the open water season in summer and fall. So that remains to be seen exactly when our vessels will be out there, but we're happy to talk with anyone working in the area about collaborating. And then we also plan to fund a separate synthesis after the main core of the field season. So everyone who's funded through this program has committed to participate for 5 years at a minimum in terms of, sharing data, showing up at PI meetings, and working on papers. But then we're also going to provide some additional funding for synthesis, and we'll probably release a call for proposals for that in 2020 or so, and that will make some additional money available for probably anywhere from 1.5 years to 2 years after the core program has finished collecting their field data to provide some additional funds to bring new people in and make sure that the synthetic products get produced. So I think if you'd go to the next slide, I think that's my last slide. I just have my email address there. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that great presentation, Danielle. Any questions?
Danielle, this is Sarah. The coordinated projects, do you have a public listing of those, or is that not available?
It is available. It's on our website, on our Arctic program website. If you go to Request for Proposals, there's a link there for Appendix A, which is the appendix to the RFP that listed all of those 22 projects that had committed to collaborating. And
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you again, Danielle. I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about this in the next few months as you guys reach decisions and we get to start hearing about all the great projects that are going to be funded. So With that, we'll move on to our next item, which is an update on the Arctic Observing Summit. It looks like we have Hayo on the phone now. So, Hayo, are you ready?
Yes.
Hayo, before you get started, sorry, some participants seem to be muted, but I haven't muted anybody. So let me just see if I can help out here. Okay, so I think I have unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
I can, Sandy. I don't know how that happened. I certainly didn't do it. Sorry.
Okay, not to worry. I did have a question for Danielle, and maybe some others did too if you were muted as well. Danielle, and excuse my lack of background in the marine ecology science, but I'm curious how a program like yours can leverage some of the longer-term efforts like the DBO or the repeat surveys like Rusalka. What are are those communities already pretty involved in your synthesis science teams, or do these tend to be different communities?
Thanks, Sandy. Often they are the same communities. So several of the folks that are involved in programs like DBO, Rusalka, Ambon are also among the folks that have submitted proposals to us or that have been listed in our Appendix A. In our RFP, we had a website, a link from our website. We put up some lists of resources that we strongly encouraged folks to look at as they develop their proposals, and that included things like the maps of the DBO stations, and we encouraged folks to propose to sample the DBO for us as part of this program, for example, and contribute. So there's definitely, I hope, going to be some great opportunities for crosswalk among all of these different programs, and we intend to do what we can to contribute samples for those programs as well and to share data so that we can start putting the whole picture together. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, and it's great to hear. I guess one curiosity I have is that as you're sort of reaching out and looking for some of these partners, are there research communities that you feel could be better involved in the work you do, like those working on more of the physical changes in the physical system, or are there data products from other communities that seem to be consistent roadblocks to making progress that we could think about within this group?
I think there are some examples. All in all, I've been really happy actually with how well the marine community is integrating. At least in the marine system, the sea ice folks and the physical oceanography folks seem to be making some big strides in terms of tying in with the folks in on the biology side of things to look at things like primary production dynamics and what that means for distributions of forage fish, for example. Areas where I think we could make more progress where IARPC may be able to help through the collaboration teams are things like doing a better job of making sure that the atmosphere is coupled in the modeling to the sea ice and the physical oceanography. I know that there are a number of folks that are working on that, and I think that we're doing better in that regard, but there's always probably room for improvement there. The other area where it seems to be very difficult to make strides is in linking the terrestrial system and the marine system, that coastal interface. It seems like there's a marine community, there's a terrestrial community, there's a very small coastal community of researchers, and then there's like the modeling folks, and you really, I think, need to get all of those people together talking to one another. So, for example, the Glaciers and Fjords team may have some very valuable data that they could provide in terms of glacier outflow and from the into the marine system at that coastal interface and how that affects things like bloom dynamics and stratification. I think there's still some stovepipes that we need to break down. The other one where I think we definitely could do better is in tying in the coastal communities, so the human communities, with this, with the types of research that's going on, and the modeling as well. So pulling in what's important to people, how do we tie in all of this ecosystem research, and can we use models to help with some of this iteration. I think there's a lot of room there to break down some barriers there. Thanks for the question.
Yes, great answer. Good to know.
All right, is there anybody else out there that had questions for Sandy or Dan?